Hello, dear spectators, Al-Azizay al-Mushahideen. Today, we're going to have a discussion on the last clashes with the new Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa Kadhimi and the Iranian-backed militias. So as you know, the phenomena of militarization, which began to appear in Iraq after the American occupation in 2003, has created many problems for the Iraqi governments. And this phenomena turns out to be one of the main obstacles in the face of centralization process in the country. So beside the fact that domestic and foreign political actors use this phenomena as political leverage exacerbates this security problem as well. So therefore, due to these facts, Iraqi governments have not been successful that much, even though they took some serious steps against this phenomena of militiazation. So when it comes to today's discussion, this militiazation versus centralization issue in Iraq, we witnessed that Hajj al-Shabi, the Iranian-backed factions of Hajj al-Shabi are challenging the Mustafa Kadhimi government by their political and military actions. So in this respect, we're gonna, as I told you, have a discussion with Dr. Muqez Dagher, who is a leading pollster in the Middle East, Iraqi pollster in the Middle East. We're gonna have a discussion with him, and we're gonna ask some serious questions regarding this issue. So welcome, Dr. Muqez Dagher.
Thank you.
So firstly, I want to ask you the main question, actually the introductory question about the Hajj al-Shabi. So can you please tell me what is the Popular Mobilization Forces, also known as Hajj al-Shabi in Iraq, and is the Popular Mobilization Forces a monolithic organization or not? How can you describe it? How can you describe its structure?
Okay. First of all, thank you, and thank you for all audiences to be
You're
here.
welcome.
The PMF, Popular Mobilization Units or Forces, this is a very broad term, and many people may misinterpret this term, especially those who are not aware about the real meaning of it and about politics in Iraq. So let me go back first of all to 2003. After the invasion, the first militias came with there were many militias came with the invasion. Some of it were belonging to political movements and parties like Ahmed al-Chalabi party. These militias have been dismantled, and according to a law issued by Bremer at that time, they became part of the Iraqi security forces. And there was also one main Islamic militia, which called Badr militias. Badr militia established on 1980s in Iran as part of the opposition, Iraqi military opposition or armed opposition against the regime at that time. So when the invasion took place and after United States controlled Iraq, this militia came to Iraq. They were around 10,000 at that time, 10,000 armed and trained men. After that, after the invasion directly, we started seeing a new militia established by Muqtada Sadr, who was in Iraq at that time. And the main reason for establishing it was to oppose the invasion, and they made some operation against the invader. On 2005 and 2006, there was a real civil war between especially Shias and Sunnis, or representatives of Shias and Sunnis, and the Islamic Sunni groups started to emerge as a new military force, and some of these groups also attacked Shia's people. So at that time, the Sadrists, they increased their activity to protect Shias from the Sunnis extremists. So they started to gain more weapons, more privileges, and this is why on 2006, the first time the clash happened between Maliki government at that time, Maliki and Sadrist in Basra. That was the first ever clash between Shia's militia and the Iraqi government. After that, things calmed down. The groups started to increase, and on 2010, 2011, 2012, we had or we have seen a lot of newcomers, and most of these comers, most of these militias came from the Sadrist group itself, like Asa'ib Ahl al-Haq, like other groups. Originally, they joined Sadrist, but then differences took place between them, and some of them established their own groups. Of course, Iran was always, the politic of Iran was always to support these groups. They wanted to make American suffering in Iraq, because to protect themselves from Americans, to keep the Americans busy with the issue of Iraq. They created a huge chaos in Iraq, not by supporting different Shia's militias, but even Al-Qaeda at that time, they supported it directly and indirectly.
Sorry, dear Dr. Dagger, I want to ask you a question. Sorry for interruption. So at that time, actually, I mean, in 2007 or 6, when the Sadris are fighting against the Iraqi government, the Maliki government, actually, what was the main stance of Ali Sistani against these militia groups?
Ali Sistani was always against militias and against armed groups outside the government. So this position of Ali Sistani and the Marja'iyya in Najaf was always against that. That's why the Sadrists themselves, they call themselves as the talking مرجعية, not the silent مرجعية. They accused Ali Sistani and the clergy of Ali Sistani as being silent, and they are, because they didn't challenge the invasion, while they are the talking clergy. So this was, and even on 2014, I will come to it, they have a very different position toward militias and toward armed groups. It's not as most people think about it. Anyway, so on 2010, on 2011, 2012, there were a lot of tries to come to compromise between the Iraqi government and the and these militias. And the Iraqi government at that time, led by a strong Shias leader as Maliki, he was able to avoid the noise of these militias, but at the same time, he enabled and unleashed them in Iraq, so they became stronger and more with more weapons, more influences on the political process. In 2014, Daesh took over Mosul and other Sunni areas. That was on June 2014. And at that time, on the 13th of course, the Daesh took over Mosul on the 9th of June, and they made a very quick progress, and after just 2 days, they were on the borders of Baghdad. So these militias played an active role in protecting Baghdad from these from Daesh or from ISIS at that time, because the Iraqi army collapsed due to the attack by Daesh, and these militias played a role in protecting civilians and protected Baghdad from the progress of ISIS. After 2 days, and on 13th, this was before the fatwa of Ali Sistani. So they were exist before the fatwa of Ali Sistani. Almost around 60 different militia or groups at that time, less than 60. But on the 13th of June, Sistani issued fatwa asking and calling Iraqis, not only Shias, Iraqis, to join the Iraqi forces, not to compose or establish new forces or militias. So originally, the call by Ali Sistani was to support Iraqi national forces with volunteers from everywhere in Iraq. But what happened later, they used this fatwa, these militias, they used this fatwa as a justification to increase their power and to recruit more people, because the army and the security forces at that time was very weak, and actually the situation was very chaotic. So these militias used that fatwa to establish new militias, new brigades, or to recruit more people in their in their forces. So after that, we had around 67 different Shias militias fighting against Daesh. What happened at that time is that most of these militias were following not Sistani taqlid, or as a referral for them was Ayatollah Khamenei, and these they call them wala'is because they believe in wilayat al-faqih. They believe in the principle of wilayat al-faqih, and they followed that wilaya. So let me show you how was the situation on June 2014.
Yeah.
So on 2014, we have this structure, this hybrid complicated structure. So we have the PM group. At that time, they didn't call them PMF. They call them militias. And let me show you how it was. Okay. So at that time, we had 67 Shia militias, and we have, and of these 67, 44 of them following Khamenei clergy, and only 17 following Sistani clergy. And then later on, after that, months after that, they established PMF from Sunnis and 9 brigades from minorities, Christians, Yazidis, etc., and Turkmen, and 6 following different other Shias clergy, including some Ayatollah, some clerics in Iran and in Iraq. So the 67 groups, almost 80% of them was belonging to or following Khamenei. And as you can see right now,
dear doctor, we cannot, unfortunately, we cannot see the presentation.
You don't see the presentation?
Unfortunately, we cannot.
Okay, let me try it. Okay,
yes.
now
yes.
you can see.
Yes.
So as you can see here, we have in June 2014, 67 Shia groups or militias. You can see it. You can see the cursor right now. 44 of them following Khamenei clergy, 17 only following Sistani clergy in Iraq, 6 they were following different other marji'iyas and different other Ayatollah, whether in Iraq or Lebanon or in Iran. So this was the situation. And after that, on 2016, of course, they established Sunnis PMF on 43, 43 brigades, and we had 9 brigades from minorities as Christians, Turkmen, Yazidis, Shabak, etc. And we had all these groups fighting against Daesh. On 2016, the PMF legalized and by a legislation issued by Iraqi parliament, which called the law number 40, which established what they call it PMF, the Popular Mobilization Forces.
Yeah, I think it was during the tenure of Haider al-Abadi, I think.
Yes, it was during Haider al-Abadi as a prime minister. But the problem with that law was very broad. It was just one page describing what is the PMF and to whom they are reporting, with very vague general statements about it. And this became one of the problem later on. On 2016, things became to be bad between Al-Abadi and the PMF. And there were 3 main issues between Al-Abadi and these militias or the PMF. One of these issues was fighting outside Iraq.
Yeah. For example, in Syria.
Yes, in Syria. We had more than 20 Iraqi units or groups fighting outside Iraq, and around 22,000 Iraqi fighting in Syria. And Al-Abadi refused to regard these as part of the PMF. And he said that the law was very clear. The PMF is about Iraqi fighters who are fighting in Iraq against Daesh. So this was the first difference point with the PMF. The second one was what we call it nationalize or legalize the salaries. Salaries of these fighters, and we are talking about more than 100,000 fighters legally. Actually, they are not more than 40,000, but on the list officially, we have more 100,000 names. So what Al-Abadi wanted to do is to pay all these salaries through banks to make it legal. The PMF leaders at that time, they refused strongly to do that, because if they do that, then a lot of fraud in salaries will be exposed to the public. As I've told you, they are actually not more than 40,000 real fighters. All other monies were going to these groups. The third problem was about the relation with the United States and the bases, the US bases in Iraq. So after, these problems, unfortunately, were not solved, and it transferred to the next government, which is Adil Abdel Mahdi. Adil Abdel Mahdi was one of the weakest prime ministers in Iraq history. And actually, because he has no political bloc supporting him, and he came through a lot of trade-offs politics, so he felt that he was very weak. And actually, he unleashed this group to work and to increase their influence in Iraq. And one of that consequences were the clashes between these groups and United States. This became United States bases in Iraq. This became very clear after US sanctions imposed strictly on Iran. On 2018, as you know, Trump administration started to, first of all, he withdrew from the agreement, the nuclear agreement, and then the administration started to increase the pressure on Iran. The reaction of Iran was on the US bases in Iraq through its proxies, who are these groups. So we started seeing these groups attacking US bases, and then on 2019, this increased a lot. And of course, US started to attack back these groups. And at that time, a new term, a new principle emerged, which is, they call it the Islamic resistant groups. So these groups in Iraq, these militias, they differentiate themselves in two different groups, as you can see from here. So we have the Islamic resistant non-PMF groups, and the PMF groups. PMF groups, they are part of the Iraqi National Forces, and the chief commander is supposed to be the prime minister. So when they have been accused by attacking the US bases, they claim that those who attack US bases are not PMF groups. These are Islamic resistance group. And as they are a resistance against occupation, against foreign bases in Iraq, they have all the right in the world to resist and to fight against the invader, meaning United States, and also against Israel and the occupation of Arab lands. So we have started seeing this new term of Islamic resistance. And the strange thing is, the same group has two wings, or even three wings. It has the political wing, which is part of the parliament, in the Iraqi parliament, and part of it, like for instance, Asa'ib Ahl al-Haq al-Khaz'ali and Kata'ib Hezbollah, and they have brigades in the PMF groups, and they have brigades in the Islamic resistance. So this hybrid structure enabled them to escape from any legal claims, because when the public opinion and the media accusing them that they are part of the government and they cannot challenge the agreement between the Iraqi government and the US, they say that, well, this is not us. We are committed to our leader, who is the prime minister. But those who are attacking US, they are committed to Khamenei, and they are part of the Islamic resistance. So we had this hybrid structure, which actually increase the clashes inside the PMF itself. Why it increased the clashes inside the PMF itself? Because eventually we reach a situation that, as you can see here, most of the PMF, they were following Khamenei and not Sistani. For instance, we have 110,000 fighters, 70 of them following Sistani, following Iran. 40 of them only follow the Shias Marji'iyya in Najaf. Out of 67 groups, as I've told you, 44 of them, they are following Wilayat al-Faqih. Not only this, we have another issue. For instance, as you can see, the Wala'i presents ratios in the command and control position. Almost 2/3 and even more than 2/3 of the top senior commanders are following Khamenei, not Sistani. In the field, we have almost 2/3 of those who are fighting in the field, they adhere to Iranian supreme leader. So in the hierarchy of the PMF, as you can see here, we have 4 top positions, which is the leader of the Hashid, the chief of the office of the staff, and the chief of the staff. These 4 positions, 3 of it are Iranian followers. Of 5 senior officers in the PMF, we have 3 wala'is. They follow Ali Khamenei. In the directorates, we have 10 directorates in Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi. Of these 10 directorates, 7 of these directorates controlled by wala'is. In the field positions, we have 50 directorates and 32 of them belong to wala'is. So what happened actually is wala'is, they almost control everything in Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi. This made those who are belonging to Sistani feel that they have been marginalized. They got no enough resources, especially when it comes to financial resources. Everything goes to wala'is. The weapons, vehicles, influence, everything is biased towards these wala'is. That's why we had this clashes And just a couple of months ago, and before Kadhimi took place, the brigades which are following Sistani, they stated that they want to be part of the, or they want to report directly to the chief of command, which who is the prime minister himself. So right now we have a complicated situation on the ground right now.
Yeah, dear doctor, I want to ask you a question about it in this respect, actually. I mean, the distribution of this human sources and salaries and etc. You know, the pro-Sistani faction of Hajj Shabi has been criticizing the pro-Iranian factions for a long time regarding this salary distribution and recruiting process and etc. But the secession of pro-Sistani factions, as for the secession of Sistani pro-Sistani factions, why did not happen before the assassination of Qasem Soleimani and Mahdi al-Muhandis? Can you please explain this fact?
Well, first of all, these differences or these clashes were happened even before the killing or the assassination of Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. But with the strong leadership of al-Muhandis, they were able to keep it, and with the Soleimani as one strong, not only strong field commander, but also a good politicians who played a role to facilitate things between those who are belonging to Sistani and those who are belonging to Ali Khamenei. Yet, there were many incidents took place, and actually, a couple of times, Qasem Soleimani, before he has been assassinated, and especially this was after the Iraq uprising on October 2019. A couple of times, Qasem Soleimani tried and asked for a meeting with Ali Sistani, and Ali Sistani refused it. He neglected it. And
Ali Sistani has refused him for many times, I think.
Yes. So there was these issues, but it was under the table. What happened later after the assassination, and also because the resources became so limited due to the economic situation. So these differences and these clashes appeared to public.
Okay, thank you, dear Dr. Dagher, for this detailed background regarding the Iraqi militias since 2003 and up to now. So I want to ask you a very current question about the Kadhimi government. So we would like to know actually who Mustafa Kadhimi is. You know, he was a journalist before, and before that he was an expatriate in Europe, and he was escaping from the Saddam Hussein regime. And before this position, he was the head of the intelligence agency of Iraq, and now he's the current prime minister of Iraq. So we would like to know who Mustafa al-Kadhimi is. Can you please describe him?
Yeah, Mustafa al-Kadhimi left Iraq when he was very young. And he went to Europe, and there he attached to the position, to the Iraqi position against Saddam regime on 1990s. And he became part of the, the opposition. We had two main oppositions: the secular parties like Allawi, Chalabi, other, and the Islamic. So he became part of the secular, and he was in charge of what they call it the Iraqi memory. The Iraqi memory was an establishment established by Kan'an Makkiya, who is also one of the oppositioner. And its aims was to keep documents about human right violations in Iraq and other violation by the regime. So he was part of that. After 2003, he came to Iraq and he became one of the civil activists also. And he wrote a couple of, he's not, I mean, he was not a professional journalist till he has been recruited also by the president, current president, Dr. Barham Saleh, to be in charge of a journal issued in London. And he was in charge of that. On 2014, after Al-Abadi became the prime minister, Al-Abadi made many changes in the top positions, and one of those was the National Intelligence Force. So he brought Mustafa al-Kadhimi to be in charge. And actually during his 5 years or 6 years in the intelligence forces, he proved a very high qualifications, and he was able to play a good role in defeating Daesh, in cooperating with the international intelligences, and he built a very, very good relation with the US intelligence forces, even with the Iranian intelligence forces, to fight Daesh. This helped him a lot later on. Also, he built a good relation with the kings, leaders, presidents in the region, and he proved a very non-sectarian policies inside the intelligence forces, and actually everyone witnessed how he transferred that intelligence forces from a very sectarian, non-professional organization belong and dedicated to Maliki at that time, to a professional, non-biased forces. This helped him a lot to gain the trust of Sunnis, of Shias, of minorities, of the international community, and this helped him a lot to become the prime minister later on. His name started to emerge as a prime minister on 2019, and even before 2019, on 2018, before Adil Abdel Mahdi, his name was there as well, but he was not a strong competitor. After the resignation of Adil Abdel Mahdi, his name circulated strongly, and actually he has been supported by especially in Shias, especially by Hakim. He has been supported by Sunnis, Kurds, everyone was happy except pro-Iranian groups whom accused him as being a US agent due to his excellent relation with the West.
Yes.
So, of course, after the assassination of
Qasim
Soleimani and the new leadership of the IRG, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, we witnessed a significant change in the IRG policies in the region and in Iraq. One of these significant changes was the attitude toward Mustafa Kadhimi. Qasim Soleimani was one of the strong oppositioner against Kadhimi to be a prime minister in the previously, but a new politics played by the IRG, and there was a meeting between the new IRG commander and Kadhimi before being a prime minister candidate. This that was in Baghdad on I think April or March. I'm not sure, but I think April.
They saw each other when Ismail Qani was in Baghdad.
Yes. And that was a strong message to Kataib Hezbollah and other wala'is that Iran has no objection on Mustafa al-Kadhimi to be prime minister. This helped him a lot to gain the trust of the hawks and the Shias bloc in Iraq, and supported him to be the prime minister.
So when it comes to the main goals, the main perception of Mustafa al-Kadhimi about the future of Iraq, how can you define it? What are the main goals, aims of the Kadhimi government right now?
Kadhimi, and I can say that I have different meetings with him before being prime minister, and different discussions. He has a vision to a civil Iraq, non-secular Iraq, independent Iraq, and to leverage the image of this independent, patriotic, non-sectarian Iraq. Also, he has a vision that the government should recontrol the situation over the state, because right now the deep state in Iraq is very strong. He had this in his mind to regain the control over the Iraq state or Iraqi institutions.
So as for the main issue of our conversation, the main clashing points and issues between the new Kadhimi government, approximately for 2 months or something, and the pro-Iran militias of Hashd al-Shabi. How can, yes, what are the clashing points between both?
Before that clash, of course, we should keep in mind that Kataib Hezbollah especially, they were the only big militias, pro-Iranian militias, who publicly stated that they are against him, against being a prime minister. So
they have threatened him so many times.
yes, yes. And after that, when they found themselves enforced, because everyone else agreed to have him as a prime minister, so they felt that their position has been weakened by their alliances. And now what happened in Baghdad, the last incident took place in Dora, Bu'aitha, in Baghdad. Mustafa Kadhimi government, they received intelligence that the people who are attacking the US embassy and US bases, one of them is located in a headquarter, one of the offices of Kataib Hezbollah in Dora. So they issued a warrant against that one, and the counterterrorism forces went to that office, and they found 14 people. They captured them, arrested them, and after that, the Kataib Hezbollah, they thought that this is a real challenge to them, and that this arrested or this attack by Mustafa al-Kadhimi is challenging their authority, their image, especially that the government issued a strong statement saying that they have evidence, solid evidence, that these are the people who are attacking embassies in the green zone and also the US bases. So Abu Fadak and his forces, Abu Fadak is the new chief of staff of Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi, or the PMF. He brought a big forces, and they challenge and they go to the green zone, and there was some mediation between the government and Kataib Hezbollah to solve the issue between both.
Yeah, thanks a lot. By the way, I want to say to you, I mean, please accept my condolences to you about the loss of dear Dr. Hisham Al-Hashimi. We are very sad about it. And in this respect, yes, please tell me.
Yeah, he was a very, very good, excellent researcher in these armed groups, and a good part of my presentation came from him. I was intending to have him in this conversation as well, to invite him, but unfortunately his assassination came as a sudden shocking event. So
yes, it was very, very sad. Actually, I don't know how to say. I was also personally following him on Twitter. Actually, his critiques about the militia groups and the terrorist movements are very insightful. So please accept my condolences again.
thank
you. In this respect, I want to ask you a question about this assassination, if you don't mind, of course.
Yeah.
So what is the main reason of, assassinating an independent researcher and journalists in Iraq, especially right now. I mean, is this assassination related to this centralization process, or I don't know, Kadhimi government? Uh, how can you define it?
Well, I can see it as part of the current dynamic and current influence battle between government and these militias, especially the militias. I mean, I cannot, of course, comment. It's now in the legal process, and I'm not allowed to say anything about who killed him or even any speculation. But what I can say is that I think those who assassinated or chose al-Hashimi, they knew that he is close to Mustafa al-Kadhimi. And but at the same time, he might be the weaker person in the inner circle of Mustafa al-Kadhimi because he has no protection. He is a civilian. So killing him will send a strong message to Mustafa al-Kadhimi. This is one. The second thing is al-Hashimi in the last couple of months was revealing a lot of intelligence and information about the link between those who are attacking bases, embassies, etc. in Iraq and these militias. And he revealed some names and he was going publicly and stated courageously. And I think those who assassinated him, they wanted to send a message to us, all those who are commenting, all those who are analyzing, all those who are stating statements against these militias to keep our mouth shut down. So this is also part of it, and to challenge also the militias for the last 2 months since Kadhimi took the position. They kept sending the same message. He is a weak, al-Kadhimi is a weak leader, and a weak leader cannot challenge these groups first and cannot lead Iraq. So they keep sending this message through different tools, and one of these was assassinating al-Hashimi as a close friend to Mustafa al-Kadhimi and as a public figure at the same time.
Yeah. And what is your expectation about this investigation process? How can you predict it?
Optimistic,
the result.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic. First of all, not because al-Kadhimi don't want to reveal, but I think these the assassinators and those who killed him, they are deeply controlling many different circles in the
government, in the governmental institutions, administration.
Yes. So, for instance, al-Hashimi house, located in an area in Baghdad, which is very well protected by different checkpoints and cameras everywhere. It is not possible to have 2 motorcycles with 4 armed persons going in and out without being witnessed or seen by these forces guarded the area. That's why, for instance, Al-Kadhimi, the first decision he made is to kick out or to fire the leader, the military leader who was in charge of that area. So they are going very deep in the government. So no matter what committees will be established to investigate, they will be able to divert, and they will be able to cover the facts and make it one of these incidents which will be registered against unknown.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this, for your comments again, once more, dear Dr. Duggar. So, as for the foreign dimension of this Iraqi domestic issue, so I want to ask you a question. So, I mean, regarding these clashes between the Kadhimi government and Iran-backed militias, the Iran-backed militias. So, what are the main expectations of the United States and Iran from both parts of this conflict?
Yeah. For the U.S., it's clear that the U.S. government, U.S. administration will use these last two incidents, the Kataib Hezbollah captured and the assassination of al-Hashimi, to put more pressures on Kadhimi to control and leash these militias and these groups. For the Iranian part, I think that there is right now a struggle between two wings inside Iran. It's not the conservatives against the reformers, but there is now a trend in Iran claiming that what happened to Iran influence in the region due to the tough politics and to the using violence and militias, which made Iran the most hated country in the region. So they are asking for more soft power techniques. And these will for sure support Kadhimi in controlling these militias. But at the same time, there is a strong trend inside the Iranian institution, and part of them are the IRG and some other institutions who wants to keep the same legacy of Qasem Soleimani, which means that these militias are the most valuable assets for Iran to influence the region. So
for an asymmetrical war, especially in the region.
Yeah. So right now there are these two trends, and if you noticed a couple of days ago when the Iranian parliament they questioned Mr. Jawad Zarif, and they attacked him hardly and strongly and accused him of being weak. This is the trend that I'm talking about. This is the so we have these two We are not sure who will win eventually. I can see that one or two rounds win by the state of Iran, and other rounds win by the IRG and the tougher guys in Iran.
So how about the United States behavior? I mean, towards the Kadhimi government, it's going to go to the United States, I think, in this month. So
yeah, I don't think he will be able to go this month due to COVID-19 and the lockdown, even in Washington. So objectively, I don't think that there will be a chance to go there, but he will go, of course, as soon as this lockdown lifted. The government or the administration, the US administration supporting Al-Kadhimi, they think of him as a good chance and hope for an independent Iraq. They have the will to support him in many different ways. And I think this can be a golden opportunity for Al-Kadhimi if he wants to use it, not against Iran, but to use it to build an independent Iraq as he always wanted to do.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dagher. And another question, it was one of the last questions, I think. So let's come to the popular mobilization forces again once more. So the subject of this conversation is also the future of popular mobilization forces. So in this respect, I want to ask you that what can say the possible future developments regarding the popular mobilization forces? I mean, let's say in a year, for example.
Yeah.
How can you predict it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, this is the $1 million question. Let me say that there are a lot of challenges for the PMF right now, and I cannot see how these challenges can be overcome without having a strong, unified leadership, which is not there anymore after the assassination of Al-Muhandis and Qasim Soleimani. One of the most important issue is the legality of the PMF. Right now, we have this hybrid structure where we have groups fighting under the umbrella of the government, and at the same time they have a group outside the government. So this make their legal position very weak, because you cannot establish armed groups out of, according to the constitution, armed groups outside the control of the government. This is a big issue, and they need to deal with it in a way or another. The other thing is the religious legality of or the religious justification of these. Right now we have, and this is very, very important, and many people, many analysts may misinterpret this. The competition and sometimes struggle between Najaf and Qom go very deep in history. And this competition on the supreme leadership of Shias in the world now on a real test, because Al-Sistani feel that there is a real challenge to Najaf clergy imposed by the influence of those who are following Iran and Qom and their clergy. So, and you know, according to many surveys, over 85% of Shias in Iraq, they are following Sistani. They are not following Khamenei. So this brings the issue to the top. I mean, a minority who are controlling the majority of Shias and have the upper hand over the resources of the PMF. This is another issue. The third one is the popular reputation. The popular reputation, though the PMF popular reputation among Iraqis and especially among Shias is still high, but when you ask questions about definite groups like Asa'ib Ahl al-Haq, I mean, when you ask about the PMF in general, everyone will say that they are good, they are courageous, they are patriotic, they protected us, blah, 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 blah. But when you go and ask about Asa'ib Ahl al-Haq, about Kata'ib Hezbollah, about others, then you will see a sharp decline in the popularity of these groups among the people. So the thing which keep these groups legal and get the popular support is to be under the umbrella of the PMF. Otherwise, they will lose this very important ingredient, which is the popular support, and this will make it easy for any Iraqi government, if it wants to dissolve or attack these groups, it will be easy for it because it has the support of the people against these. So this is a third challenge. Also, we have the Iranian attachment on this. Iran is has very, very low reputation right now in Iraq among Iraqis.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you have already conducted a field work recently, I think, a month ago or something about it.
Yeah. And for instance, those Shias who were supporting Iran and regarding it as a reliable partner, they were around 87% on 2004. Right now, they are only 17%, 17.
Very sharp decline.
Exactly. And one of the main slogans in the Iraqi uprising, October 2019 uprising was Iran barra barra, It means that they want Iran to be, influence to be outside. The Iranian chancellor in building in Najaf burned twice or 3 times, and in Basra, etc. So the sentiments of people totally against. So being attached to Iran, receiving also support from Iran, make the image of the PMF very bad. And finally, the PMF, they have got a lot of army support and resources from Iran. Iran right now in a very weak position, and they cannot provide the same support that they used to provide, whether to Lebanon, whether to Syria, whether to Iraq. So all these things are real challenges for the future of the PMF. And of course, as I started, the most important challenge is the leadership. There is no possible leader for Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi. I cannot see right now any leader who can bring all different segments under one umbrella. So this is a real challenge.
By the way, Abu Fadak is not the official leader, I think.
No, no. Operationally, technically, he is, but officially, legally, he is not. And Mustafa Kadhimi did not approve because Ali Sistani did not approve it.
Yeah, that is also a very important detail. Dr. Dagher, thank you for this informative and detailed explanation. And we got a few questions, and I think we have approximately 10 minutes or something. I want to ask you a question right now. One of the spectators asks the expectations of the ordinary Iraqi people from Mustafa Kadhimi. I mean, regardless of belief and ethnicity.
Yeah. I can say that at the beginning, and we have run a survey on that just 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, a month ago. The expectations were very high. And this is one of the problems of Mustafa al-Kadhimi. How to manage these expectations, because Iraqis, due to what they saw during the last 17 years, they expect or they hope that there is a leader or there is a prime minister who can make 180-degree detour and change everything to the opposite way. This practically is not possible for many different reasons. And so they have that high expectations about al-Kadhimi to change everything. That's why his identified or regarded failure in dealing with Dora incident with Kataib Hezbollah, and if he will not uncover those who killed al-Hashimi, this will cause him a lot, and he will lose the trust of the people, and then he will face a big frustration by the people, and this can flame the uprising again against the governments.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, for this, for your answer again. And I think it's gonna be the last question, Dr. Dagher. And Sorry. Yes, one of the spectators audiences asked that what are the this question, yes, what are the strength of Iraqi protesters? I mean, they're on the street, they have been on the street since the last October. So are you optimistic about this this line of protest?
Yes. First of all, what happened in October 2019 was a sudden event for many people, surprise for many people who thought that Iraqis will never challenge the government in this way. But what happened after that proved that Iraqis and the young Iraqis were so insistent and the momentum of these protests have not stopped and it continued for almost 6 months. This is maybe one of the longest protests in the world. Also, numbers are very high. There have been many achievements. Not least was the resignation of the government of Adil Abdel Mahdi. This was the first ever time in Iraq history that people enforce a prime minister to resign or a government to resign. This is a huge achievement. They enforced the parliament to change the law of the election. Also, they put a lot of pressures on the different blocks, especially Shia's blocks and Shia's political parties. So they, for the first time, they were not able to choose a prime minister for 3 months, almost 3 months, without having a prime minister replacing Adil Abdel Mahdi because of these popular pressures. So, of course, COVID-19 had a devastating consequences on these protests. My expectations, though Mustafa Kadhimi tried to bring some of these protesters and make them advisors in his office, I don't think he will be able to stop these protests. And as soon as the COVID-19 lockdown lifted, there will be a new and maybe bigger protests, especially due to the decline in the economic situation as well. So it all depends on the reaction and the decisions of Kadhimi government during the coming couple of months. If he will not meet the expectations of the protesters, then it will come back, and this time maybe will be stronger.
Thanks a lot again for your effort answering this question. This is very important question. I think the protest has been lasting, continuing for approximately 10 months or something, and hasn't stopped. And you say it will not stop. Maybe it will last maybe a year, maybe more than a year or something. And they got also successful. For example, when looking at the resignation of Adil Abdel Mahdi government, it is also very a fruitful result for the protesters, I think. Of course, apart from the killings. I mean, by the way, how about these assassinations? Assassinations of the protesters. There is any formal investigation process about it?
Yes, there is. And also, Kadhimi established a committee to investigate. But again, I don't expect a lot from this. And since Kadhimi, he declared in his first statement or his first speech after being prime minister, that one of his top priorities of his government is to uncover those who killed the protesters. So he put more, or he leveraged the expectations of the protesters. This might be a negative factor against his government if he cannot fulfill this commitment.
Dr. Dagher, if you don't mind, the last question, one of our friends continues to insisting that I have to ask this question to you about the Daesh, ISIS. So she asks that, what do you think about the increasing attacks of Daesh? Can they increase in the near future? And how these attacks can affect the Kadhimi government in the near future as well?
Well, if I was in the shoes of Al-Kadhimi, the attacks by ISIS is a very good news for me, because this will divert the attention toward a foreign or outside enemy, which is very good right now. My observations, and as someone who has been following ISIS since even before it's born, and made a lot of research on it, I can say that what is going on right now, yet there is some increase in the attacks, but it's not worrying. ISIS need maybe a couple more years before it can recover. And I think ISIS battlefields are moving right now out of Iraq toward Libya, toward Syria, maybe also toward other areas. But in Iraq, they suffered because of the lack of the support of Sunnis right now. They don't have the same incubator that they used to have before. So all these attacks came from far away deserts, some shelters in these deserts, but and even the silent and sleeping cells are not so active. But this does not mean that they are not making a real threat to Iraq's security. If the political situation and the government lose the faith of Sunnis in it, then, and if the control of PMF and other Shias groups on Sunnis areas will not be lifted, then the possibility of having Daesh or a similar organization is very possible.
Thanks a lot for this long detailed answer, Mr. Dr. Dagher. And thank you so much again for joining us. It was very fruitful informative and long detailed and insightful discussion. Actually, personally, I have learned a lot of things, and I got a lot of insightful comments from you. And on the behalf of the Center for Iranian Studies in Ankara, I would like to thank you once more, and hopefully we'll see each other, we'll meet each other in the future events about Iraq and the region. Thanks a lot, and
Thank you.
have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you for this opportunity, and hopefully we meet again soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot. Bye.